Oh yeah, still got it.
Alright, so I started this video in Nova and now I'm in North Carolina, and I wanted to finish it because I had some B-roll from that and I didn't want that to go to waste. Also because I don't know if I'm going to continue using this setup for like indefinitely. I think at some point I might need to downsize a little bit because this is a pretty large camera setup. But if you guys have been watching the videos for a while, you may remember back in like 2021 I got this Canon 6D Mark II with a 16-35mm lens, f4, and so it's been a pretty sturdy and reliable setup since then, and there's a reason I'm still using it today, because it is still relevant even with all the new camera technology and all the cool like AI editing and all this stuff. Alright, so this is now the POV setup from my 0.5 on my phone, as you can tell. So it's a pretty large like rig. This is the 5K, I believe, GorillaPod setup that allows you to actually have this huge 16-35L lens on here. The camera itself doesn't weigh a ton, but the lens is pretty heavy. I think the whole rig together is probably like 5 or so pounds. So if I'm doing this kind of thing back in the day when I was vlogging, like this is a lot to be holding after kind of a while. And yeah, I mean, flip around screen. I'm going to talk about what's good about it here in a second, but this is just to kind of show you guys what it looks like. I'm in this random kind of area. If you know where this is, then good job, I guess. But this is the camera setup, and that's my truck back there. Dang, that's actually clean right now, man. Okay, so we're back to this camera setup. And number one rule of like when to film is during golden hour. It's about an hour-ish before sunset, so the lighting is generally good and kind of even all around. Obviously it's kind of harsh because it's directly on me. I don't usually like that, but generally speaking, it's a good time. So there's a few points I want to make about why I think the 6D is still relevant, the 6D Mark II specifically, with, for my setup, the 16-35 L lens. And the number one thing is that it has a full frame sensor, okay? So the sensor size on this camera has nothing to do with the fact that it zooms in. I don't know, I just did that. But it is 20 times larger than the sensor, like on the phone here. As you can tell, the phone is only this big, right? The camera has, of course, this huge thing back here, and it has an optical, like it's actual optics. It's not being like generated by AI or anything. You know, when you first get into DSLRs, the entry-level ones, like the T3i back in the day was my first one. That's a crop APS-C sensor, which means that your real field of view of like the human eye when you're looking at stuff is not the same as what that sensor is cropping the view to, if that makes sense. I might put a diagram or something to make it make more sense. But essentially, with a full-size sensor, you're getting more light per pixel, you're getting better depth of field, you're getting a wider dynamic range, which means basically in normal terms you're getting more detail for like the shadows and then the highlights. So for example, like my shirt is black, you may be able to see a little bit more detail or not, depending on the lighting, but the background here is the sky, so it's very light blue, so you can see a little bit more of that detail than you would with like an APS-C or smaller sensor, like on the phone for example, except that with the phone then you have all these kind of pre-baked edits, which is a main point I want to make, in that you can vlog with your phone or whatever, or just shoot cinematography and it's fine, because every day like the phone's cameras are getting better. But if you know a thing or two, you'll understand that the phone camera is actually nothing in comparison to like a DSLR, and it will never be that way simply because the size and what you can fit in here. There's tons of compression because the file size, they compress it so that the information that's in that video file is compressed, and then again the pre-baked edits that changes the saturation, the depth of field, and so it gives it more of an artificial kind of look if you compare like iPhone footage to this kind of footage, even though this is literally only 1080p at max and the phone is like 4 to 8K. It's not all just about resolution. Like they try to sell you on, you can record stuff in like a bajillion K. Like nobody cares. It's more about other factors that impact how you see kind of the natural like raw look in the photo or video. So I think the pre-baked edits aside, that like, you know, kind of AI generated stuff that's like good for TikTok, recording on your phone or whatever, I think just you get better quality with kind of a big camera rig like this, even though it's much heavier, and that's really the only downside. Obviously this camera, the 6D Mark II, or maybe not obviously, but it has continuous video autofocus. I think that was one thing that with my T3i I could not live with, because you had to keep manually focusing it. So for example, like if I put this into manual focus, you'll notice that it's not very obvious because I'm fairly close to the camera and the depth of field is not very strong right now. But it continuously focuses on my face no matter how far away I get, or like if I get closer, or if I move this around, or like whatever, it'll still focus on like me, right? And so in the shadow you can see how big and silly this setup is. But point being, continuous video autofocus is critical if you're doing any sort of videography with your camera that requires you being in it, and even having any subject, you can focus on that particular subject. It's not as fast as some of the autofocus features like currently available, especially like in your phones and like newer cameras and stuff like that, but it does the job, it does it just fine. I guess the last pro I just want to mention is that really the depth of field that you get out of having even this only going down to 4 f-stops, it has extremely good depth of field that's very realistic and doesn't feel like AI generated. If you go on your phone, you'll notice that there's this mode called cinematic mode, right? You definitely can't see that because it's on my phone screen. But if you go to cinematic mode, what it does is blurs the background. But that is entirely, not entirely, but almost entirely AI generated based on what it thinks is the subject and what is in the background. So you'll notice sometimes that if you do that on your phone, the background is not perfectly blurred out, and like parts of your hair might be blurred out, even though it's like in the same field like of depth as your face is compared to the camera, like relatively. And so these are just things that I think if you pay attention, if you're like a camera nerd or whatever, that you care about these kinds of things, that this used to be like something I really cared about, with quality and all this, which is why I'm really trying to make an effort to just like record stuff on this big camera and not my phone when I can, because, you know, I have it, and it's the only problem, again, the only con is that it's big and heavy, and I have to carry this big rig around, and it's very obvious that like I'm filming a video, you know, like I have to be like, oh, hey guys, what's up, welcome to my channel. So, you know, it's very the opposite of inconspicuous, right? So you can't just like, but even if you have your phone up, it's like, come on, right? So yeah, I realize this video is not like highly technical, and again, I'm not, I don't know, camera engineer or something, but this is primarily just like my view on why I think the 6D Mark II is still like a great rig, even though it came out in 2018. This is older technology, but it does the job well, and I don't have to worry about dropping this thing and it breaking. Like, obviously I don't drop it, but like my phone, every time I drop it, it seems like it cracks. And you know, the camera, there's no real glass. In case you didn't know, the optics are plastic, and it's all like, again, pre-baked edits that make it look the way that it does, so that, you know, the sky in the background will be nice and saturated and whatever, but, you know, you can't color grade and do stuff in post-production like you could with the raw files from this camera, which is, you know, again, one of the things I like about it. So this is kind of just a quick video to sort of share my thoughts on that, and, you know, also convince myself that this is like a great camera rig that I don't need to replace. The only thing is literally if I'm recording stuff, maybe at like the gym or something, or if I'm especially doing like fitness kind of stuff, I'm working out, it's harder to bring this around, and I'd prefer not to have this big thing in the gym. I especially don't like kind of doing that kind of thing at the gym. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I'm getting a little sunburnt now, sitting here in the sun, even though it's golden hour. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know it's a little bit different, kind of just, you know, this is what I've been thinking about lately again, so I wanted to make this video for you guys. And let me know what else maybe you want to see, or if you have a recommendation, or if I should get a different rig, or just kind of a secondary camera setup. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys real soon.